Over the past 5 years, New York drill has become the biggest wave in rap music the city has seen in decades. Taking elements from previous drill movements like Chicago and the UK, New York made its own version that grew to be extremely successful. From 2016 to 2018, the movement grew in the underground, under the radar of fans outside the city. Then in 2019, it exploded into the mainstream. But despite reaching mainstream attention, the genre lost some of its biggest stars early on and never reached its true potential. And as a result, it peaked around 2020 and has been falling off for the past 4 years. So in this video, we'll take a look at the story of New York drill, how it rose to mainstream attention and then fell off. Before we get into the video, if you haven't yet, please consider subscribing. The main reason this channel is able to grow is people subscribing and sharing the videos. If you're a content creator, streamer, or business owner looking to grow your audience, today's sponsor might be what you're looking for. In 2025, everybody knows that the quickest way to get attention and grow a following is short form content. The specific strategy for anyone with long form content is getting a team of people to clip moments and mass upload them. This is exactly how Andrew Tate became the most Googled person on the planet. To this day, the biggest creators are still using this strategy, and it's the reason why people like Mr. Beast and XQC pay people to clip their content and post it. If you stream or make long form content and your audience isn't growing as fast as you want it to or believe it should, you can also take advantage of the same strategy. Clip Controller is a website that allows you to turn an audience of any size into a team of clippers. You sign up and create an account, then you create a content sharing program. This program is how you'll manage your clippers. You'll be given a sign-up code for your program that you can share with your audience so they can join. They can connect their TikTok or YouTube accounts, so when they clip and post your videos, you can keep track of what they're posting and how many views they're driving. You motivate people to join your program and start posting by creating challenges where they get certain rewards for hitting certain amounts of views. You can track the progress of all these challenges and see when a clipper completes one. So, Clip Controller allows anyone in your audience to sign up and clip for you, and it allows you to manage and keep track of the results without any extra work. If you're serious about growing your audience the same way the biggest creators in the world are, go to the link in the description and sign up for Clip Controller today. Now let's get into the video. Before New York drill ever started, one rapper set things in motion for what was on the way, and that rapper was Bobby Shmurda. Some consider Bobby Shmurda to be the creator of New York drill, and some don't. There's an ongoing debate on what classifies as New York drill. Many believe that Bobby Shmurda wasn't a drill rapper for the simple fact that he wasn't rapping on either Chicago drill beats or UK drill beats. Whether or not Bobby Shmurda was a drill artist, he was the first New York rapper to see big success making gangsta music in over a decade and kick down the door for the next generation of Brooklyn artists to come up. Unfortunately, his run was cut short when GS9 caught their case. However, the city wasn't down for long because in 2015, a new crop of Brooklyn rappers popped up on the scene. Bambino, Money Mills, Curly Sav, and Dada were all rappers out of Brooklyn who started making music around 2015, rapping on Chicago drill beats. Their song Gang 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 was an early hit that many New Yorkers credit with putting New York drill on the map. The whole new wave was hosted on a single YouTube channel called Flowtastic TV, and many refer to this time period as the Flowtastic era. This new movement was the beginning of New York drill, but similarly to Chicago in 2010, the city didn't have their own unified sound. But this was about to change. Ironically, their unique style wouldn't really be unique at all, only to Americans. UK drill had been a thing since 2013, and groups like 6-7, 150, and the Section Boys had helped to popularize it. In the beginning of UK drill, the sound was heavily inspired by a producer from Chicago called DJ L, who made the beats for a lot of G Herbo and Lil Bibby's early hits. From the beginning of drill, DJ L beats had an unorthodox rhythm that L created using snares in a pattern nobody else was doing to create his own unique bounce. The producers in London took this bounce, and as the years progressed, they added their own unique style to it, adding 808 slides, bass, and grime hits, and also delaying the snare that usually fell on the floor. In 2016, the UK sound still hadn't reached a point where all of these changes were standard in their production, and they were still very similar to DJ L's original sound. Around this time, many UK producers were releasing beats titled DJ L/Lil Herb type beat on YouTube, and this is how New York rappers ended up stumbling across the UK sound. New York rappers first began using these UK drill beats around early 2016. 22Gz is the rapper who popularized this new sound, and he began his career around this time. His earliest song on YouTube, titled Blicky, was released on April the 28th of 2016, and it was produced by a UK producer called KR on the beat, and is possibly the first song with the New York rapper rapping on a UK beat. Another early song is Ville Part 2 by Bambino. As far as New York drill and what it's known across the world as today, 2016 was basically the beginning. During this year, the UK sound was floating around, but it needed a push to become the new sound of New York. This push came at the end of 2016 when 22Gz dropped a song called Suburban. This track blew up and turned 22Gz into the hottest rapper in the Brooklyn drill movement. And it also popularized the new trend of New York rappers hopping on UK DJL type beats. The Suburban beat was made by a 15-year-old producer from the UK who went by the name Axel Beats. And after the song blew up, everybody in New York began going to Axel for beats. Going into 2017, Brooklyn drill started to heat up. 22Gz was part of the gang known as the Blickies, and this group had other rappers like Nas and Nick Blicky. After 22Gz blew up, the whole group was on, but they had a lot of enemies. So in 2017, gang politics began to reflect heavily into the music scene. The main focus of the Brooklyn drill movement was Wu versus Cho, and both of these gangs started in Brownsville. The Cho movement originated in Brownsville, originally starting as a gang called the Hood Stars that had beef with another Brownsville group called Wave Gang. The Hood Stars grew into a gang conglomerate called Cho, containing mostly gangster disciples and a couple Crip sets, and Wave Gang grew into a conglomerate called Wu, containing a variety of Crip and Blood neighborhoods. Wu even ended up spreading outside of Brownsville to areas like Flatbush and Canarsie. There are plenty of other gangs in Brooklyn outside of Wu and Cho, like Structure and 2605, but Wu versus Cho was the main focus of Brooklyn drill. The Blickies aren't a part of Cho, but they're allied with them because they're gangster disciples, just like most of the Cho sets. While the Blickies were at the forefront of the drill scene, they would occasionally diss their ops, and after 22Gz blew, many rival Crip and Blood neighborhoods saw an opportunity to gain clout and attention from dissing the Blickies, as well as respond to the shots already thrown at them. In January, former 6ix9ine associate Kuda B dropped a song called Blicky Funeral. Then in February, G's Gasoline, Paparazzi Pop, KJ Balla, Els Tay, and Ace No. 5 teamed up to drop a song called Big Ops America, which became a huge anthem the whole city got behind that played a big role in establishing early New York drill. Next, in March, Young Costamato dropped a song called Folk in the Trunk, and Leaf Els dropped an even bigger song called No Twirl Zone, also dissing the Blickies, who were referred to as the Twirlers. No Twirl Zone featured G's Gasoline and Ace No. 5, who were already buzzing from dropping Big Ops America a month earlier. Up until this point, there were a lot of people dissing the Blickies, but no other underground rappers in the city were as big as 22Gz. However, this was about to change. In May of 2017, Sheff G, a member of the moving gang A-Tray Crips in Flatbush who had beef with the Blickies, dropped an official response to 22G's smash hit Suburban. Sheff's version was called No Suburban. When he dropped it, Sheff had just started rapping, was still relatively unknown and not fully committed to making music. But the song went crazy, reaching 1 million views in a matter of months, and it even went on to pass Suburban in views. At the time of this writing, it's sitting at about 15 million. A week after No Suburban dropped, 22 G's got locked up in Miami and charged for a body that his homie caught. So the Blickies watched their ops blow up and lost the face of their movement all at the same time. With 22 G's out of the picture, Sheff became the new hottest rapper on the scene, dropping songs like Disrespect, Haters Hurtin', and Panic, continuing to diss the Blickies along the way. He shared his new clout with his friend Sleepy Hollow by featuring him every chance he got, and together they were running Brooklyn Drill. While 22 was gone, Nas and Nick Blicky did their best to keep the movement alive, but 22 was the face of the movement, and without him, things were different. In November, 22 G's charges were dropped and he returned home to get back to music. However, by this time, things had changed from late 2016 and early 2017. He found himself fighting for control of the movement with more and more enemies, some as big as him. But there were a couple rappers from the same side as 22 G's also taking off. In October, PNVJ blew up off his song Twirlin'. And although he was from the Bronx, he ended up becoming one of the leaders of the GD and Cho movement as far as the music went. Envy Kane was also another rapper on the Blicky side, making noise around this period. Together, these two, 22 G's and the rest of the Blickies, were representing their side musically. But as time went on, more of their ops continued to blow. In 2018, the back and forth disses continued and more people started to tune in. In March of 2018, JD, D-Sav, and Fivio Foreign dropped Blicky in a Box, another big hit produced by Axel Beats. The song blew up and became a huge GDK anthem. JD got the most shine from the record, and the GD rappers also went at him the most, with 22 G's, Nick Blicky, and PNVJ all dissing him frequently after the song dropped. At the end of 2018, Pop Smoke began dropping music. His first song ever was a remix to one of Sheff G and Sleepy Hollow's songs called Panic Part 3. The beat for the song was from a producer called 808 Mello, and Pop would almost exclusively work with him through the future. Pop was a well-known Wu member from the Flossie before he ever started rapping, and he had people tuned in as soon as he started. Similarly to 2012 for Chicago, 2019 would be the year that the world was introduced to New York drill.
I'm off the Myers and the lean, that's why I'm over retarded.
From 2016 to 2019, the UK sound had continued to evolve and distinguish itself from DJ L's sound. And to those not familiar with the origins, it would seem completely new. Pop Smoke started the year strong, building a buzz early on with songs like Flexin' and Meet the Woo. Then in May, he dropped Welcome to the Party, produced by 808 Mello, and the song took off. It went beyond the city and had people across the country listening to Pop Smoke's music. He dropped his debut album, Meet the Woo, in July, and this continued his momentum because the album had a song called Dior that was an even bigger hit than Welcome to the Party and went on to get millions of views and streams. By this point, it was undeniable that Pop was next up in New York. Alongside him, Fivio Foreign, another Wu artist, also found his way into the mainstream when his hit Big Drip took off in August. With Pop Smoke and Fivio Foreign being the biggest artist in Brooklyn, Wu was basically running the music in the city. And even outside of Wu, more Brooklyn artists were beginning to see their careers flourish. In addition to Pop and Fivy, 2019 also saw the rise of artists like Max the Demon, Siggy Black, and Busy Banks. A big part of the explosion of New York drill that made New York drill different from Chicago was the fact that they had dances. The Blickies had created the Blicky Twirl back in 2017, and the dance that Pop Smoke popularized as the Woo Walk came around about a year later, and this was the origin of Getting Sturdy. These dances started from the West Indian presence and influence on New York culture. 2019 was the mainstream's introduction to Brooklyn drill, and 2020 looked like it had the potential to be another big year for the genre. But early on in the year, the scene took the biggest loss possible. In February of 2020, Pop Smoke lost his life to a home invasion at an Airbnb. Pop Smoke had only begun his career about a year and a half earlier and first blown up in May of 2019. And in the short 9-month period between Welcome to the Party and his death, he had become the face of New York drill. So him passing so early after he blew up would have been the equivalent of Chief Keef passing in January of 2013. The loss of Pop Smoke obviously hurt New York, but in the short term, after an artist loses their life, the amount of coverage and publicity they get temporarily boosts their views and streams and everything associated with them. This was the case with Pop, and after his passing, his fame took off at a crazier rate than ever before. The boost in attention on Pop Smoke translated to the entire Brooklyn drill scene for all the artists involved to benefit off of. In 2020, more YouTube channels started covering the Wu vs. Cho beef, and more fans who had never listened to Brooklyn drill were starting to tune in. Cho rappers Coach the Ghost and Freshly the General both blew up this year. Wu rappers Dusty Locane and Quelly Wu also blew up, carrying on Pop's legacy. 26AR also popped up this year, becoming one of the new faces of New York drill. 2020 would also end up being the last big year for Brooklyn until a couple years later when 4-1 took off. But over in the Bronx, a new chapter of New York drill was just beginning. In 2020, some of the first Bronx drill artists like Dthang, Kay, and Spaz Drilly, who had already been rapping before 2020, were starting to gain an early buzz, transitioning to the drill sound on the same UK beats that Brooklyn rappers were already rapping on. This same year, rappers like Kay Flock, B Love, Dougie B, and Eat Out Baby were also beginning their careers. In Brooklyn, the main gangs involved were Wu and Cho, but in the Bronx and Harlem, the main groups involved were DOA, OGs, OY, also known as Sugar Hill, YGs, and Drillies. DOA was represented by rappers like Kay Flock and Dougie B. OGs was represented by rappers like B Love and K. OY was represented by Eat Out Baby. YGs was represented by Dthang, and the Drillies were represented by Spaz Drilly. The alliances and beefs would shift over the years, but in 2020 it was DOA, OGs, and OY all beefing with the YGs and Drillies. Early Bronx drill hits include Op Spotter and Bunny Hop by Spaz Drilly, RPT Buggin' by Dthang, T-Dot, Bando, T-Mac, E-Day, and Six Shots, Caution by Dthang, Shooter Gets Shot by K, Through the Coat by B Love, Ready for War by Eat Out Baby, and Speed Racing by Kay Flock and B Love. In 2020, DOA, OGs, and OY were all on good terms, and rappers like Kay Flock, Dougie B, and K were on songs together shouting each other out. But after a video surfaced with OY rapper Eat Out Baby smoking with a YG member who was an op of all three groups, DOA saw this as a reason to start beefing with OY. The OGs sided with OY, and this was the beginning of DOA beefing with the OY and OGs groups. Despite being OGs, B Love was able to stay cool with Kay and Dougie, and in March, all three of them went up when they dropped a song called Brotherly Love that blew up, hitting 1 million views in a month. It was clear that they had the potential to really take off. Everybody was going up, but Kay Flock was separating himself from the pack. He was mainly doing collabs with his friends, but he was clearly the star. The fans wanted to see him do more solo records, and in summer he would really blow up. Summer of 2021 was when Bronx drill exploded, and during this time, new artists began blowing up back to back to back. On the YG side, Hughes G's and Shy G's began taking off. On the Drilly side, Lee Drilly began blowing up. Dthang, who was already established, continued putting out hits and also collabed frequently with all the YG and Drilly rappers blowing up. On the OY side, Blockwork blew up after dropping a song called D&D with Shy K. And for DOA, this was when rappers like C Blue set the trend and Nazi BK started buzzing with songs of their own, taking off, doing millions of views. Kay Flock and Dougie B were already on fire at this point, and DOA was the most lit group in the Bronx. Near the end of the summer, Kay Flock signed a record deal and things really began taking off. The first solo song he released was Is You Ready, and this became a crazy success, racking up tens of millions of views on YouTube, getting new attention from fans outside the drill scene. He followed this up with a track called Being Honest, which was also very popular with fans. In the fall, more rappers continued popping off. DOA rappers Kenzo Bala, TG Crippy, and C.I. Watts all had songs go viral. And on the OY side, Sugar Hill Keem started gaining traction after dropping Move Look. In September, Dthang, Bando, and T-Dot dropped Talk Facts, a Bronx drill classic where they dissed 44 people on a catchy sample beat and went extremely viral, racking up millions of views. Unfortunately, Dthang wouldn't be able to capitalize much off of all the new attention because in November he was arrested for criminal possession of a firearm and would have to sit in jail. Meanwhile, Kay Flock was continuing to rise. In October, he was featured on a Lil TJ record alongside Fivio Foreign, giving him even more mainstream attention. Then in November, he dropped his debut project, the DOA tape. Everything was going up for him. Then on December 24th, New York City put up a wanted poster with Kay Flock's picture saying he was wanted for allegedly catching a body. And in January, he turned himself in. It was revealed that the whole thing was captured on camera, and the video showed that Kay had been walking through his op's hood when he passed a barber shop. An OY member named Oscar left the shop, followed him, and confronted him. Kay backed out and upped it on him, taking his life. The whole situation was a crazy turn of events. In the prior months, he had been blowing up at a crazy rate, with many projecting his career to take off on the same trajectory as Pop Smoke. But he had blown it and was now looking at 20 plus years behind bars. A month after Kay got locked up, C.I. had his life taken outside a recording studio, and things only got worse for DOA after this point as their buzz began to fade and internal beefs began happening. Meanwhile, Shy K and OY rappers like Sugar Hill Keem and E-Dot Baby were hitting their peak in early 2022, dropping viral songs taking over the scene. Early 2022 was also the rise of a Brooklyn group called 4-1. They dropped a song called 4-1 Cypher that blew up, giving them their first bit of attention on the drill scene. But as 2022 continued, things would begin to slow down for Bronx drill. Both the Drillies and RPT were hit with indictments, and this ended up taking Lee Drilly out of the scene. Sugar Hill Keem caught a poll case that took him down, and overall throughout the year, New York drill lost a lot of its motion and excitement. But in summer, a new star ended up emerging. In July of 2022, an OY member known as Nadi Osama was stabbed in an altercation on the subway and ended up losing his life at the young age of 14. Nadi and his brother Didi Osama had recently started rapping earlier that year, and the large amount of publicity from Nadi's passing brought a lot of new listeners to Didi. He capitalized off this new attention and began dropping more music. Didi was able to do something basically no other drill rapper pulled off and captured a female demographic on TikTok. As a result, his music took off at an extreme pace. He started getting millions and millions of views. His biggest song, 40s and 9s, went crazy, hitting 7 million views in a couple months. In October, 4-1 was able to capitalize off of Didi's explosion. While Nadi was still alive, he had dissed them for working with Blockwork, and after 4-1 saw Didi blow up, they decided to diss Nadi back, dropping a song called Nadi Bop. They also made a dance mocking how he went out, and they did it in the music video. The song went extremely viral, and people were doing the dance on TikTok completely unaware that they were mocking a deceased 14-year-old. The video got taken down, but the situation got a ton of attention and blew 4-1 up on the drill scene. Didi Osama responded with a diss track of his own aimed at 4-1, and as the years went on, 4-1 and OY would continue to diss each other back and forth. Following Nadi Bop, 4-1 members like Kyle Rich and Jen Carter had several other songs blow up, racking up millions of views and streams later that year. In January of 2023, a new group called the Sweepers started making noise on the New York drill scene. The Sweepers were a gang from the Douglas Projects in Manhattan, and they had beef with DOA, OGs, and OY. In January, a song called WNA by a sweeper member known as S.Go began to blow up. A major factor behind the success of the Sweepers was their production. Through 2022, Bronx drill producers had jumped on the Jersey club wave and begun mixing the drill sound with elements from Jersey club. Around the end of the year, a new style called Dark Jersey Club emerged. This new style became associated with S.Go and the Sweepers. In addition to S.Go, the Sweepers had 3 other rappers, J-Hound, Nas GPG, and J5, and through early 2023, the group went up on the New York scene. Outside of the Sweepers, the same groups from 2022 continued running drill. DD Sama and Sugar Hill D-Dot cooled off from where they were in 2022, but they continued doing more views than most of the New York drill scene. And other OY members like Bloody and Duty Low were also seeing success with their music as well. Over in Brooklyn, 4-1 also continued their run at the top of New York drill. In July, these two groups ended up crossing paths. A situation went down where Kyle Rich and Jen Carter were at the Miami airport when they were spotted by OY rappers Bloody and Roscoe. The two decided this was the perfect opportunity to get them, and a brawl, which was caught on camera, took place. Taking advantage of the new attention from the fight, about a week later, 4-1 dropped a song called Bent, where they teamed up with star producer MC Vert to make a Jersey club banger that went viral, racking up millions in a matter of days. The record would go on to become 4-1's biggest song ever. The same day Bent dropped, Buddy and Roscoe dropped a diss track called 4-1 Stomp, and this would lead to several other back and forth diss tracks between OY rappers and 4-1 rappers. Despite rappers from these two groups doing numbers, New York drill as a whole had been on decline since 2022, and outside of OY and 4-1, basically everybody else was fading to irrelevance. The Sweepers blew up in 2023, but they didn't even last 8 months before a situation went down where S.Go and Nas GPG were arrested for allegedly doing a drill where they hit one of the targets in the leg and grazed a 4-year-old in the process. In 2024, Bronx drill pioneer Dthang was released from prison and returned to dropping music, getting a huge response on his first couple songs. Around the same time, early in the year, a new group called the Troopers also popped off, blowing up off a song called Troopers Anthem. Despite this early motion on the New York drill scene, things would begin falling off after this point as fans continued losing interest. Despite the initial hype about Dthang being back home, after he dropped some questionable songs, fans began saying his music wasn't the same and basically wrote him off. In summer, 4-1 returned with another smash hit, dropping a song called Beckham that went extremely viral, racking up over 6 million views on YouTube alone at the time of this writing. But besides this song, the rest of 2024 was downhill for New York drill. The only news coming out was petty back and forth on social media and rappers catching cases. This brings us to the present day. New York drill is basically over. From its emergence in the underground, mainstream explosion, and fall off, the genre has brought a lot of attention back to New York and given the city a new musical identity again. Like all drill movements, it gave a handful of opportunities to certain individuals to make something out of themselves, but also stirred up a lot of beef and violence. Altogether, it's been a movement that people will remember for a while.